Welcome back to the Wellness Abundance Podcast. I am so excited to have my guest, Amanda Prince, here with me. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist locally in Westlake Village. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, Amanda, and allow you to introduce yourself. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and be having this conversation with you. I really enjoy when we get a chance to connect. As you said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm in private practice in the Thousand Oaks area. My office is technically in Westlake. And I work with professionals and couples of everyone 18 and over. And I tend to emphasize working with folks who have some sort of neurodivergence or burnout or anxiety. A lot of overthinking really is sort of typical for my clients. And optimizers. I work a lot with people who are really
Mm,
optimizers, right? Which, a little segue into our topic today, maybe.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so thanks for having me. Now, I would also add, I've been working with clients since about 2015, and I've been out here in the Conejo Valley for about 3 years now. So
Okay.
thanks for the welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Yeah, about having you on. I'm a big fan of therapy, as I know I've mentioned to you previously. I really
Yes.
believe that everyone at some point in their life should go see a therapist, even if there's no tragedy or big dramatic event in their life. I feel like
Yep.
we could all use someone with your expertise, like an outsider, a third party, to kind of give us some different different perspectives. So today, what we talked about, our topic is going to be that you are not broken, because I feel
Yeah.
like we both work with people who kind of feel like that on
Yep.
some level or another.
Excuse me, absolutely. I mean, I remember when we sort of were first having what would become this conversation, sort of, relationships are foundational to both of our
Mhm.
businesses in different ways, right? But that psychological safety and really relationship-based work. And that also includes people's relationships with themselves, actually, right? They,
Mhm.
in our different ways, our clients let us into their inner worlds and sometimes their most like shameful, fraught feelings about themselves. And, I in that, we see like people who are can be so driven and we can accomplish a lot more so driven. But there becomes a point too where we start treating ourselves like we're broken or like we are a problem to be fixed. And it's when we get stuck into that mode of like constant optimization and everything is a problem or something to be managed out. It's worth a little curiosity of what's going on there, right? It may not be as straightforward as it seems on the surface.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And this is definitely something that I've experienced in my
yeah,
personal life. It with myself is I never really pictured myself as like a perfectionist and someone who needs to be on and like optimizing all the time. But
yeah,
sometimes I feel like, um, like you talked about, we think that we're broken and we need to be fixed. So we're constantly working to do that. I feel like there's definitely been times in my life where I feel like, where I, feel that. And it kind of helps. It's a really great reminder to me that yes, I do have some perfectionism in me
yeah,
and
yeah.
that I don't need to be on all the time. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to be, it's okay to make mistakes and to be human.
Totally. Totally. And I think it's like when we can I relate to that too as a person. I've certainly wrestled. There was a point in my life, it was probably when I was in grad school and working and managing my personal and everything, right? Where I just hit a brick wall of perfectionism was
Mhm.
just killing me, so I had a little bit of a personal kind of reconciliation or reckoning with that. But I feel it kind of crop up. And I certainly see it with my clients too, and in particular, really driven type A people, right? Who, again, so high achieving, but come in and are like, well, I feel like I'm not presenting myself in the best way unless I'm doing this. And it's, there's no room for like rest and acceptance of the idea that like we actually need rest to show up and perform
Mhm.
our best. Like rest is I think it's a lot about American culture and certainly like office culture, is that, there's even what that's saying, like, you can rest when you're dead. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, time out, right?
Mhm.
But, there are reasons that we do it that are typically self-protective, right? Like often it is, perfectionism very often comes out of anxiety, low self-esteem. Um, and it's like those things are bad, or we tell ourselves that those are bad. But they're really self-protective. We learn to do those things and operate in those ways because they kept us safe at some point in life, right? And and it can take us far, but very often there comes a point where it's like too much, and that thing that protected us and helped us become so successful starts taking us down in different ways. And I think one of the areas where I see that crop up in is this like relentless optimization of self and kind of relentless self improvement versus like the discernment of like allowing yourself to be who you are, shortcomings and all,
Mhm.
limitations and all, allowing yourself to be a work in progress, and offering yourself the same sort of compassion or grace that you might give somebody else, or, or maybe not actually, right? Sometimes like we're also just as hard on everybody around us. And
Mm.
that often then comes back to how we treat ourselves too. Like when we find that we're being judgmental, it's often we're pretty judgmental of ourselves too, right? So there's a lot, um, that gets tied up in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And do you see that show up with fitness clients too? Like,
I yes, I do. I do. I I notice that with my clients, they definitely get wrapped up in, oh, I didn't eat so well, or
yeah,
I didn't work out this weekend,
yeah,
or I was on vacation and I just laid around, or I didn't do any strength workouts. I didn't utilize the gym at where we were staying. It's all these things where they feel like they did something wrong.
yeah,
And I also get this a lot to where they feel like they're letting me down
mm,
as their coach.
mm,
And the reality is they're not letting me down at all.
yeah, yeah,
I'm never let down by my clients' actions or
yeah,
inactions. Everyone
yeah,
is on their own journey, and everyone, like, if you choose to take a vacation and you don't want to work out and you
yeah.
just want to indulge in treats and enjoy your vacation,
Then
I'm
do
a big
it.
fan of that. Yes.
Right.
When my husband and I went to Disney World a couple years ago, I mean, granted, we got like 28,000 steps a day because we were walking around the parks.
Yep.
However, like, we
How
drank.
many miles is that? Is that like
Oh, that's
10
a good.
miles or something like that? Maybe more.
I don't know. That's a good question. It's probably is about 10 miles, but I don't know that
Yeah.
exact figure off the top of
It's
my
a
head.
good active day.
Yes, exactly. We were definitely like physically exhausted at the
Yeah.
end of the day. But we drank more uh, alcohol than we usually do. We're not really big drinkers. It's like
Right.
one, maybe two drinks on the weekends. That's
Yeah.
our normal life. But man, I mean, we were drinking some days at like 10 a.m., just walking around the
Yeah.
park with alcohol because we could. And we were like,
Yeah.
you know what? We're on vacation and we're
Yeah.
going to eat. And we're going to eat all the foods that we don't normally eat because this is fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable um, and really kind of this. So this is something too that I've learned. This is one reason why I could totally relate to my clients when they say, "Oh, I didn't work out on vacation," or "I haven't worked out in a week," or "I haven't done this," or "I indulged in
Yeah.
this sweet treat." It's like I've been there. I
Yeah.
know what it's like, and I know what it's like to shame myself for
I
doing it.
love
'Cause I
I
did that for so long, and now it's just like, yeah, whatever.
yeah, I love that you said the word shame. I got like all excited for a minute because I mean that's like ultimately it, right? Is like when we find that like we can't sit still. Like that's the thing with the optimization. It's like at some point, you know, asking yourself like am I truly working on healthy, integrative, nurturing, supportive self-improvement that's really in service of my life and my goals and who I want to be? Or am I hiding out from some sort of feeling or from something that I'm uncomfortable with? And when you said shame, I feel like that hits that nail right on the
Mhm.
head of like, many of us who are busy, busy, busy and achievers, and you mentioned kind of like a little bit of not even necessarily people pleasing, but just this feeling of just not wanting to disappoint people and the
Yeah.
expectations that we project onto them, right? Like that happens with me too. Like I'm never disappointed in my clients. Like everybody is trying their best. Like if you're in therapy, odds are you are earnest, good faith, showing up, doing your best. I think probably same true for your work also. But that shame piece, it's like we're often trying to stay ahead of feeling whatever that is about ourselves. And this fundamental idea that as we are, we're defective or broken or, unacceptable, which is not true, right? It's like you can be
Mhm.
imperfect and still be worthy of love and peace and self respect and rest and enjoyment of your life, right? And I think that shame is very often like this kind of really early like root of that idea and this like relentless drive for so many of us. Like I work with a lot of people too who like at some point work and work and work and they pick their heads up and they're like, oh my God. One, I've just been working for 25 years and like haven't even really looked up. But also like I've gotten here and lo and behold, it's not doing for me what I expected it to do. Like it's not
Mm.
feeling the way I expected it to make me feel about myself, whether it's a title or a number, like a particular compensation amount or a number in the bank, or, whatever it is, like any kind of external achievement, and I've been here too. Like, it's like we move the goalpost on ourselves. And at
Mm.
some point, it's like, oh, there's not going to be some outside thing that I do that's going to give me that feeling of self worth. Like, that is an inside job. It has to come from
Mhm.
the inside of me. Right. And so I wonder if that's true also in like fitness. I can imagine
Yeah.
there are
A-
parallels.
Absolutely, totally. I work primarily with women, and
Uh-huh.
we tend to judge ourselves by the shape of our body, how much we weigh,
Yeah.
what size clothes we are, because that's basically what society has conditioned us to, how society has conditioned us to judge ourselves.
Yep.
And but then when you don't achieve that, or if you do achieve it, you're like, I feel like crap. I'm not sleeping.
Yep.
I I'm not menstruating anymore because
Yep.
I've lost so much weight. I don't have enough fat on my body to regulate my hormones like they're supposed to
Yeah.
be naturally regulating on their own.
Yep.
And then they get to a point where it's like, I can't do this anymore. Or when they get super strict with their eating, it's like it's not fun. I can't go out with my
Yeah.
girlfriends. I can't go to happy hour with my girlfriends or go have a glass of wine because I can't eat alcohol because it's eliminated from my diet. Or
Right. It's like I can do this many things and no enjoyment is part of any
e-
of it.
exactly. And I always
Yeah.
like my big philosophy, one of my number one philosophies with nutrition is just because it's healthy, it doesn't mean you need to eat it.
Yeah.
Like kale was a big one for years. I remember
I
this,
remember
I
when
haven't
kale
heard,
like came on the scene, it was like nobody had heard of kale, or it was
I
like at the
know.
Sizzler salad bar for decor, and then it was like a food.
And then it was like all of a sudden this number
Yep.
one superfood everyone should be eating. It's like, well, hold on. Let's back up here. Yes, is it nutrient dense? Of course. Does everyone like it? No. Should
My
everyone be
husband's
eating it? No.
opinion is that it tastes like dirt, which is, it's not, I like kale, but, I hear you to
Yeah.
that point of like, it's just not for
Yeah.
everyone, right?
I mean, if you want to try it, and also another on a side note with like veggies, just vegetables in general, you know, I encourage my clients if they're like, I can't eat vegetables, like I can't eat broccoli, I can't eat cauliflower, I can't eat Brussels sprouts, I can't eat any of those. They just
Mm,
don't taste good. But if they want to try it and they're open to it, then we talk about different ways they can prepare them.
right.
Because,
So it
like,
doesn't taste like dirt anymore or whatever it is.
right, exactly. Roasted Brussels sprouts are way better than boiled Brussels sprouts.
For example, yep.
That's a great example. And then I actually created several years ago, and it's somewhere on my website, bacon kale butternut squash soup.
Mm.
And it is, not to brag, but it is like
Is it?
my favorite recipe that I've made. It's the
Yeah.
best recipe. And because you cook the bacon, the bacon pieces, and then you take those out, and then you cook the kale in the bacon fat,
Oh, I
and you
see. So
take that
it's
out. And then you go through the
super
whole
rich.
process of making the homemade butternut squash soup, which is actually super easy to do. It just takes a
Hmm.
little while, but The steps are actually very simple. Um, and then you just mix all the ingredients together. So you get your kale, but it's cooked in bacon grease. I mean, come on.
Right. Like, what's wrong with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And but then again, you don't need to have kale in there. So anyways, I always, tell my clients like don't do it. And with my
Yeah.
don't eat it if you don't want to. And with my fitness clients, if there's a movement you absolutely do not like doing, like you're like, you cannot like hold me down and make me do this movement. I won't make them do it. It's as simple
Right.
as that, whether
I
it's
mean,
an effective movement or not.
and I've worked out with you, and I can testify to that. I have said, for example, I hate mountain climbers, and you're like, oh, so we don't do those, right? But, and that's totally the spirit of like, you don't have
Yeah,
to, like, it doesn't need to be a forced something. Like, you could meet
right.
yourself where you're at, right? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, totally. When you, in terms of that phenomenon of kind of hiding out in exercise or work or any, and the things that we hide out in typically, right, are
Mhm.
like, I'm sure you see it with exercise and fitness and folks' dietary habits. But anything that gives us like some dopamine, basically, one way or another,
Mhm.
like we can do it, including food, sex, work, shopping,
Mhm.
gambling, on and on, right? Social media, like the least bright and shiny of all of those, right? But I think we're all familiar with the feeling of just being gripped by our phones at times. Are there things in your experience of working with people where you see them sort of like also do that hiding out and also, ways of kind of getting real and interrupting that? I know we've talked about like different ways to kind of get more present, basically. Um, but I would sort of, love to hear your experience with that too. I'm curious, because I find it so personal. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like you say to one person, like, try mindfulness or meditation. They're like, that's just not for me. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, like, so a little trial and error, right?
Yeah. So part of like my program is all based on like the individual's values and basically what's important to them and why they want
Yeah.
to do something. Like
Mm.
what's the real motivation and what's driving you to do this? And what are
Yep.
you willing to trade? Like
Yep.
there's trade-offs with all of this,
Yep.
like scrolling social media, scrolling the news.
Yeah.
You could choose to be doing that, or you could be, prepping your meals for the week, or, you know, creating an exercise routine, or getting
Yeah.
extra sleep, or sitting outside and, sipping on a cup of coffee in
Yeah.
nature, or, you know, going for a hike. Really, it's all just about tapping into what's important to you and what you are choosing to prioritize.
Yeah. That's very close to an exercise that we do in a particular modality called acceptance and commitment therapy. It's
Mm-hmm.
a values card sort where basically you work with a client and they're given, I don't remember, the starting number of values is like 50, or it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ranging from like things that seem universal, right? To like love or friends or whatever, but also like success, power, money. You know what I mean? Like really kind of like a whole spectrum of like values that a person might hold, along with like the option to sort of write in some. And there's this kind of forced ranking process that it takes you through. But at the end, like you have a set of like values, basically like 10 values that are sort of ranked from like most present and most demonstrated in your life, by yourself and by people around you, and then to least. And I think it's not 100% scientific, right? Like we change, we might feel one way on one day, but either
Mm-hmm.
way, the point
Yeah.
is to kind of like get clear about like who do you want to be, what's true for you, what values are important to
Mm-hmm.
you, and then looking at different domains of your life and seeing how far apart like your behaviors and your actions and your relationships and your choices are from those values, right? And so I hear like that real kind of focused approach to looking at your choices about food and fitness, um, can be like super powerful for people. I think that's cool. I love that. And I know journaling and writing about it is part
Mm-hmm.
of your program as well. And that really encouraging people to sort of get honest about what's going on inside. Um, and journaling, big therapy tool as well for,
Mm-hmm.
super similar reasons. And I so interesting. It's like when we started out talking about or just acknowledging like the relationship and like that people bring these
Mhm.
like really tender, fraught things in, just like the importance of meeting that with psychological safety, right? Of
Mm,
like, whatever you're coming to me with is okay and is welcome here. I know that you work with clients in that way. And, just
mhm,
knowing you, I know that that is part of your spirit is really just acceptance and compassion for people. And it's absolutely a vital part of therapy too, right? Is like, you can tell me anything about who you are and it's okay. It's just
yeah.
part of who you are. And can we look at it together? And, I wonder if the work with you can do some of like a similar kind of healing experience of therapy in the sense of like being with another person
Mhm.
and them being safe while you're talking
Yeah.
about things that are so icky about yourself and not rejecting you for them, not saying, well, that's broken and you should fix it, but just saying, like, so, because it's just like who you are, right? And maybe some of it is going to evolve and change, but this is who you are right now. And like, and you could, if you stay here, that's okay too, right? And really giving people permission to like, you don't have to go like 75 miles an hour speeding ahead and eradicate this, right? And at least like in therapeutic work, different therapists work in different ways. And one approach is top down regulation. So doing all of that, like kind of cognition work of like being clear about your values, core beliefs, looking at your
Mhm.
behaviors, making different behavioral choices to influence how you think and how you feel. And, and in conjunction with that, like very often we have to just become able to tolerate not feeling good, you know, and
Mm,
not maybe not eating or not working out compulsively or not working at our job for 12 hours a day, whatever it is, right? But, to build the capacity to feel those feelings and then just start to learn to manage our emotions in different ways, and like a lot of that sitting with the feeling sometimes it's usually sad stuff,
mm,
and so like, of course, we don't want to feel it. And the reality is, if you can feel it, metabolize it safely with someone who can help kind of keep you
yeah.
stable and safe and work through it with you, doesn't have to hold you back the same way anymore. But like the more we're shoving it down or just trying to stay ahead of it, it's like dragging a giant sack of garbage behind
Mhm.
us. You know,
Yeah.
Garbage is harsh. I don't mean garbage, but or like just
Yeah.
wearing a weighted vest. You know,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
a saying in
Mhm.
12 step of drop the rock. You know what I mean? Like all this stuff we
Mm,
hold on to, just drop the rock.
yeah.
You know.
Yes. I totally agree with all of that. And journal going back to the journaling thing is that's actually one of the big reasons why I put journaling in my program through the form of habit sheets
Yeah.
is because like it's so much more productive and you'll move forward, I think, faster and more
Yeah.
efficiently. You'll move through a challenge in your life when you actually put those feelings down on paper, like pen to
Yeah.
paper,
Yep.
not typing on a computer,
Yep. I
pen
mean,
to
pen to
paper.
paper, it uses a different part of your brain and it processes information in a different way than
Yeah.
typing does.
Yes. So whenever I'm going through like a big challenge in my life, whether it be personally or professionally, I grab my journal and I will just write and write and
Yep.
write and write and write. And in fact, my husband and I were just having this conversation last weekend where I was frustrated. We make pour over coffee
Hmm.
and pour over coffee. And the filter broke, the paper filter broke. So it was going through the stainless steel mesh
Hmm.
filter like super slow. Like I was about ready just to throw it across the room, but
Yeah.
consciously I knew that's probably not a good idea.
Typically not. Yeah.
Of course I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Um, but I was getting so frustrated with it. Then after my husband jumped in and he's like, well, let's try this. And I was, of course, refusing. I'm like, no, I don't know what to do and all frantic. And then afterwards he's
Yeah.
like, what's really going on? It's not about the coffee filter. So I kind of opened up to him about some things and I was like, I just need to sit in my feelings about this. It wasn't a big deal. It
Yep.
was just a life thing, nothing
Yep.
tragic, nothing dramatic, but it was just a day where I just needed to be a little grumpy and a little moody. And
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. And it,
And
like there was nothing to fix about it, right? It was
there was
just,
there was nothing to fix. It was
yeah.
just me being grumpy for probably a bunch of
Yeah.
reasons,
Yeah.
small reasons together. And
Yeah.
so sitting in those feelings will I if for me personally helps me process it better,
Yeah.
even though it's
Yeah.
hard and the tears come out, and
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
That's okay. I remember the first time I had a potential new client uh, get on a discovery call with me, and she just broke down in tears,
Mm.
telling me I was like newly certified. This was like 8 years ago. I did not know what to do.
Mhm.
And it threw me for a loop. But then all my training, I tapped into my training, just said, just let her feel the feelings.
Yeah. Right. There's nothing to like, don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like that was a big lesson for me as a
Yeah.
coach, to really allow my clients to do that. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like, feel the feelings, because it gives you an opportunity to process it.
Yeah, totally. I love journaling personally and professionally. And I often hear from people too, like sometimes just like the blank page is like, where do like, I don't,
Yeah.
like what I'm just like, and some folks sometimes like, oh, what I'm going to sit down and be like, dear diary, there's like all this self
Mhm.
criticism about it and the minimization of making space for our emotional experience. And there is a journal called Safe Journal. I'm not sure if you do show notes or whatever, but I'll send you a link over to
Yeah.
it. I think it's
Please.
great. It's like a 2-page layout that includes like cute, like a little bit of a mood tracker, some time and place.
Mm,
It gives you a section to just say whatever, but then there are some prompts that I think are good for that mindfulness and learning how to check in with yourself, and even like what kinds of questions to ask yourself about how you're doing. Because sometimes it's like, if we don't have a lot of practice at naming our emotions or if being curious about our inner life or other people being curious about it, it can kind of be like, I don't know how I feel. I can tell you what I think, but I don't understand what I actually feel, which are two different things, right?
right.
So it's a nicely structured journal. And also it's only like 2 pages. So even if you're like, well, I don't feel like doing it, usually when you open it, if you get started, it's like, it can be like 5 minutes. Or if you start writing, you might find that there's more to say, right? And it's like super affordable. It's like $20 or something like that. So
Mm,
I will send it over to you. I think you'd
yeah.
appreciate it.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things too I love about journaling is going back and reading past journal entries and just
Yeah.
realizing, like, wow, I overcame this challenge in my life
Yeah.
when this journal entry had very little hope in it.
Yes. Right.
Like,
Right. Because and you're like, I remember feeling just despair, right?
yeah,
And that despair was the only thing.
yeah. Like, I
Yeah.
remember feeling helpless and hopeless, and like this was never going to get resolved. I was never going to get over this. I was never going to move
Yeah.
on from it. And then look where I
Yeah.
am now.
I love that point about journaling too, and that it gives us a kind of personal history, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and it can, I have personally experienced it. I have heard it from clients as well. It's really hard to see how much we've changed or how much progress we've made because, we only experience ourselves day to
Yeah.
day. But when you look back at those journal entries, exactly that thing you're saying, if you're like, wow, I used to feel anxious, crawling out of my skin anxious every day.
Yeah.
And it changed, right? So you can see the progress too. And I think kind of to this topic of just like scaling back a little on the relentless self-improvement, many folks have this anxiety of like, if I'm not actively steering and driving my growth, it's not going to happen. And like,
Mm,
that's actually also not true. You know what I mean? Like there is kind of this top-down approach of like willing yourself into being the person you want to be. And again, lots of value in working with your cognition and structure and discipline and consistency
yeah.
and the self-care that can come through discipline and consistency too, right? Especially folks who grew up with a lot of chaos, like learning how to be a little consistent is really
Mm,
healthy self-care. Um, but for many people, there is a little bit of a kind of transformative, like, oh my God moment when you sort of realize like you can step back from the active cognitive trying and your process, and you can keep unfolding and growing and evolving, even if you're not getting up actively working at it every day. It's maybe a little bit more outside your project plan, right? But
Mhm.
it's also like an illusion of control, usually, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I sort of love that journals give us that chance too to be like, all of this stuff happened and I wasn't necessarily working on it. It just changed. I was doing whatever else, or I was more emotionally focused on this other thing. And lo and behold, something else just sort of moved through anyway. So I like journaling too for that record of like, I don't have to like micromanage every step of my
Yeah.
evolution for it to happen, you know?
Yeah. Learning how to go with the flow and not
Yes.
force anything has, yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. And that's been a hard lesson for me, is not forcing anything to happen and like just letting go of control.
Yeah.
You know, I have this hat that I bought in Cambria in February, and I'm not really a big hat wearer. I never really have been, but I found this hat and it has flowers on it and it says surrender to the flow.
Mm.
And I had to buy it. Like I
Yeah.
had to buy it. And
Yeah.
I don't normally buy hats,
Yeah.
but I had to buy it. And now I wear it at least once a week
Yeah.
because it just reminds
A
me
reminder.
to
Yeah.
just calm down, take a deep breath, and just go with the flow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. As I'm sort of looking through like just a couple of bullet points I've made, and
Mhm.
what we're talking about really are these ways to get more present, right? And so I love
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
like, even having an affirmation, like something that reminds you of like being in the moment, to take a deep breath, take a step back, and to sort of to unclench, right? Is what I'm hearing a little bit, and make room for
Yeah.
um things besides your direct involvement to keep something moving forward. We've talked about journaling. And I think, too, we've talked about just sitting in your feelings, right? Like if you just need to cry, cry, like it'll move through
Yeah.
faster, right?
Mhm.
There's also when we cry, there's like a chemical release that it provides. There's like some, I think, evolutionary science behind like
Yeah.
tears serve like an evolutionary psychology function, to like make us feel better and keep us healthy. But other things too are like unitasking, just do one thing at a time,
Mm.
for that, like if you're scrolling and watching a movie and half looking at your calendar for the next, it's like you're not doing any of those things really, but
Right.
it's more of that staying distracted and staying checked out, and avoiding what's really there. So unitasking, just like do one thing at a time. you know I heard on an ADHD podcast I listened to, somebody said go slow to go fast, and it really stuck with me of like,
Mm.
make more progress if you just slow down a little bit. um Also spending time in nature, right? And so you're talking about being in Cambria,
Yeah.
which is like a beautiful place, and we live in
Mhm.
a beautiful place. That can really reinforce that, just like slow down and breathe for a moment, and like you don't, and then flip the top down turning all the time. Um, meditation can be part of that too, but I briefly touched on it earlier that like it's not for everybody. Some people are like,
Right.
I can't do it. I'm not interested. It's not for me. Too hand wavy.
Yeah.
And there are different ways to meditate. There's so many like guided meditations on every streaming platform, and
Mhm.
even like 3 to 5 minutes a day can make a big difference at your connectedness to yourself, your capacity for distress, all of these things. Um, then obviously I think go to one of us, or someone who
Yeah.
does the things that we do, like get a partner. I think in your case, I really appreciate how that your training is trauma informed, and that you really have a psychological understanding of what's going on with your clients, and I've worked with lots of trainers, and in my experience, that can often be missing.
Mhm.
And it can be, I don't want to say harmful, it's a big word to throw out there, but it just doesn't work if that relational fit is not right.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate that aspect of your training, and that you have not only like obviously like the knowing how to do the exercise part and the kinesiology and the body and
Mhm.
nutrition, but understanding psychology with it, trauma with it. I think women in midlife, right? And that training
Yeah.
too includes like a dimension of trauma also.
Yeah.
So I think like getting with a therapist who really can be a psychologically safe partner, and then like, or and coming to work with a therapist, right? And for
Yeah.
many folks, like I encourage you, whether it's obviously like, of course, I would love to hear from anybody, and I mean, may or may not be a fit, but just call a therapist and talk to them and see
Mhm.
what it's like, you know, and just you don't have to commit to doing it right away, but just talk to them, see how it feels,
Yeah.
see what you think, you know. Um, I think those are all ways of sort of looking at this. And I I would also say, if any of the things we have said at some point have made you do like a double take about yourself, be
Mhm.
curious about that, right?
Yeah.
And maybe there's something in you that's ready to start thinking about yourself in a different way, or is just tired, and needs a different approach to your life. I mean,
Yeah.
I that's certainly something I see with clients in midlife,
Mhm.
especially women in midlife, but men and women in midlife both, of like something happens where what's like what got us here is not going to be the thing that takes us through the next like 40 years of our lives.
Yeah.
Like something has to change. Um, so yeah, so if any of this rang a bell, I feel like you should take that seriously, and be
Mhm.
curious about what's really going on for you, and like who are you now, right? And what's going to be right for you going forward,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I love all of that, and especially the working with a therapist. I've worked with a handful of therapists over the last 25 years of my life, and it has been a big game changer, with me, with how I view things. And like Scott and I even my husband and I went to a therapist before we even got engaged, just to make
Love it.
sure, have a third party, an outsider, like ask us questions to make sure we were going down a path that was right for us. And here we are almost 8 years later, and you know still happily married, and
Yeah.
learning, we've kind of gotten good at how to navigate, managing life challenges, and working through disagreements between the two of us and everything.
Yeah.
And it's just been a huge game changer, and I have quite a few clients who are working with therapists as well.
Yeah.
And I embrace that, and I welcome it, and I highly encourage it with my clients, because I can only
Yeah.
do so much. Yes, I do have some a pretty solid psychology education throughout my training as a board certified health and wellness coach, and through my Girls Gone Strong certifications. But it's different than what you do. It's
Yeah.
so I definitely recommend like getting a therapist if you feel
Yeah.
like you need another level of
Yeah.
guidance.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that recognition. And yeah, I mean, they are different things, right? And I sort of likewise, it's like, therapy, the relationship can be a huge part of what helps people get better
Mhm.
and helps their lives really change. But at some point, they have to just go back out into their lives and start doing things and be in the
Mhm. Yeah.
community and try things differently. And that's where, our two types of work, I think, really dovetail together so well. Um, I appreciate that. I also, this is like a topic for another talk, but I love that you two went to couples therapy before there was a problem,
Mhm.
because I so often hear this like strong, fearful reaction of like, well, if I go to couples therapy, it means I have a problem. And it's like,
Mhm.
or what if you could go to couples therapy to make sure the problems don't get like
Yeah.
existentially threatening, right? Like, what if it's actually the most protective thing you could do for
Mhm.
your relationship is like, go talk to someone before it becomes, or it's too late. A lot of people
Yeah.
wait, they don't come into therapy as a couple until one person is basically already made up their mind, you
Mhm.
know? And it's not like you can never come back from it, but, you know, I just get some help, man. You don't have to tell everybody about it, right? Like if it feels
Yeah.
uncomfortable or, but like what's the harm in trying it?
Mhm.
Again, just talk to someone and
Yeah.
see, you know?
Yeah.
There there is this guy Carl Rogers, he's dead, but he's sort of the father of humanist
Mhm.
psychotherapy. And one of my sort of favorite, it's a thing that I think about frequently when I'm sort of dealing with something that is not what I would like it to be. So he has a white paper where he wrote that the facts are always friendly because they bring us closer to
Mm.
the truth. And so
Mm.
just that idea of digesting a painful truth is ultimately in service of us far beyond avoiding it and running from it and hiding
Yeah.
from it, right? And so
Hmm.
like just turn into whatever it is and deal with it so you can move on with your life, right? And like
Hmm.
proverbially drop the rock, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Um, cool. Well, I feel like that's a really good place for us to kind of start wrapping up, unless
Okay.
there's something else you want to share um, that's on your
I feel
mind.
like, I have so many thoughts on this topic and I can keep
Yeah.
talking. And this is, the first time that we've done it. So um, I feel like the risk of just going down a tangential rabbit hole is high. So I feel like, we have some solid thoughts and takeaways of like
Yeah.
if you're finding yourself busy all the time or trying to fix yourself all the time, get curious about what's going on underneath that and like try and get a little bit more present and see what's there. And then at some point maybe enlist some help in
Hmm.
figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Well, my website is amandaprinceTherapy.com. Folks are welcome to reach out to me there. Or yeah, I think that's the best way. There's a
Okay.
contact form, more information, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I offer free consultations. Almost every therapist does. And if I think I'm not a right fit for someone, I'm happy to sort of talk to potential therapy clients about how to find someone who is a fit for them and what to think about and
Hmm.
what to look for or provide other referrals. I really I transitioned into this career in adulthood because I love it and understand the transformative power of therapy. And it's so personal. So I just love to help people find someone who's a good fit for them. So I'm also just happy to talk to people about it. They reach out.
Yeah. Great. That's awesome. Well, I will put
Yeah,
your website in the show notes and so
thank you.
people will know where to find you. And if for some reason you guys can't find it, just reach out to me and I'll pass it along to you directly. But yeah, so this was such a fun conversation. And so I'm Amanda is going to be on again as a guest, and we're going to have more conversations like this on various topics because I feel like we just have such a great connection, Amanda and I, at, because of what we do, you know?
Yeah, I'm so glad we met. It's been so fun getting to know you and
Yeah.
talking about all these things. And
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, so I'm so excited just to have a therapist on board here on the podcast. So,
thank you. I would actually, this is last ditch. Maybe I should have said it at
yeah.
the beginning. I would also throw in a disclaimer of like, if you ask 10 different therapists about a topic, they might give you 10 different answers, right?
Mm,
So, like, if something here resonates for you, like, great. If it doesn't, like, take it, but just let it go, right? Or
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily necessary to say, but, you know,
I, yeah, I think that is a good point to bring up because I feel like we take things so seriously. Oh, I heard
yeah.
it from this person, this therapist, and they're a professional, they're licensed. It's like, okay, well,
Are they the end all be all of all knowledge in the domain?
yeah,
Probably not.
exactly.
Um,
So I
yeah,
I totally agree with you on that, and I feel the same way about my work. Like if I share something and you're like, yeah, that doesn't really resonate with me, and then that's great.
that's okay. Yeah,
Yep.
you do you. Yep.
Yep. So,
Cool.
all right, cool. Well, thanks again, Amanda, for coming on, and
Thank you.
we'll see you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. It's been great. Thanks for having me.